Today we're going to look at this filthy 1970s Yamaha FG series acoustic guitar. It needs some new strings and a serious cleaning. So open up the toolbox and see what we've got inside. We're gonna need the string winder, some cutters, saddle and nut lubricant, and the applicator for it. Gonna need a guitar tuner, a couple of rags for oil and polish. Gonna need the polish, of course. We're gonna need some oil. To save time, I'm going to just play this in fast forward, but I tend to just loosen all the strings at once and then I cut them in the middle. That way I don't end up with any little short sections of string hanging around. And once that's done, I cut them all in the middle. After I've done that, I pull the pegs with the little tool at the end of the string winder and away I go. Having a long length of string on both ends lets you keep your hands away from the pokey bits. Tying up your scraps is also easier when they're longer. Now that the strings are off, I'll take this opportunity to vacuum this guitar out. All the unfinished wood is going to get soaked in this lemon oil. I tend to give it more than I think it needs and then I let it sit for a few minutes. After that, I wipe up any excess oil. The wood will tend to drink what it needs and then I just wipe away what it doesn't take. While I'm waiting for the saddle to drink up, I make sure I work in between each fret right up to the metal. Once that's done, I get a dry part of my cloth and I buff out any excess lemon oil. It doesn't have to be lemon oil, that's just what I happen to use. Next, I'll go and I'll make sure that there's no oil pooling on the fingerboard, especially down next to any of the frets. And I'll take some extra care to make sure that no oil remains on the finished parts of the wood. Make sure when you polish a guitar you read the directions because they're not all the same. This one says to spray the cloth that you're using with the cleaner. But sometimes you have to spray it on the guitar, sometimes you have to wipe the guitar and let it dry and then wipe off the residue. They're all different. Then I go in with my lubricant and I put it down each crack of the saddle and the nut. Make sure the notch in your bridge pin faces your headstock. The straighter it goes, the better your string will sound. I like to put all 6 of my strings in before I attach them at the headstock end. If you've got cats, this is about the time you want to start locking them up. So when I've got a string, I like to measure from where I want it to be to the next capstan, and that's where I cut it. I always end up with the perfect number of winds. This is with a wound string. So then I put it through with just the tiniest bit sticking out. Then I fold it sharp. And here's the best time to talk about this. Here is a bend. You're allowed to bend a string without ruining it. So you can bend a string all you want, but as soon as you kink it, you've ruined it. So if you get a kink in the playable portion of a string, you've killed its tone and you've made it weak. So you put a kink in it, and you wrap it around, and then your first wrap you want to go over top of the portion you have sticking out, and then your second wrap you want to go underneath. And as it tightens, it will pinch the little nub you have sticking out. So again, we cut it at the next one. So we're doing the A string right now. So that first wrap went over and the second wrap went under. And you can see right there how it's sticking through. So for that D string, we measured to about the end of the headstock. And same for the G string. Now for this B string we're working on, it's not a wound string, it's a smooth string. So that won't work. So we go 1.5 about. That's where we're gonna cut it today. One and about a half for the E string. B and a half. So let's go over this again. For the B string, we're gonna count 1.5. For the E string, 1.5. That's where we'll cut it. And while I bring the strings up to tune, what I do is I hold the bridge pin down just so it doesn't go flying out. Because sometimes that happens and it's pretty terrifying. And then once I've got the guitar in tune, I will often hold the bridge pin down and I'll give each string a tug, a gentle tug, but just to help it stretch in a bit so it doesn't constantly go out of tune. And it still will quite a bit, but it really brings down the time it takes to stretch strings in. And last but not least, if you keep your guitar in your case, it makes a lot of sense to make sure you keep that case clean.